Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to the Roaming Startup Show. I am Professor Hans von Puppet. Today, Zach and Bob talk with Kevin Bryce about his movie We Are Superman that he recently funded on Kickstarter. You will love the story of how he got deported.
Welcome everybody to the Roaming Startup. We're here with our guest today, Kevin Bryce. He successfully started a Kickstarter project with We Are Superman. We Are Superman is about a story in Kansas City based off truth, racism, justice, community, citizenships, economic longevity, and do-it-yourself projects. This is an amazing movie, and we're really excited to have the opportunity to have Kevin on about it. What made you choose Kickstarter as your source funding?
Well, we only there's Indiegogo, I think, is the other one. And then there's just traditional donations via PayPal or so on. But I liked a lot of the functionalities of Kickstarter. I think they're a very good coach in what you ought to do as you're creating your Kickstarter, even right down to what you should include in your video. That was very helpful, knowing that I should include my own face in the video and not just have a trailer, but include my own self giving a very personal ask. Also, the idea of the incentives. Give $1 and we'll send you a smiley face email. Give us $20 and we'll send you like a digital poster. These things, it was very, I just found Kickstarter to be very helpful. They really guided you along the way as far as, here's some incentives that have worked, here's some that haven't. Here, check out this video that really worked. And so it was just kind of a natural thing for us to choose that.
Tell us a little bit about, I know that you talked about it originally was going to be a short film, and then it grew to this large project. How did that come about?
I was going for 20 minutes, and I was working alone at that time. So we got an interview with the mayor, and I had two other kind of guys that I was working with and would become close friends at 31st and Troost, Father David Altschul, a priest, and Rodney Knott, this guy who runs a class for fatherless men. His class is kind of the first of its kind, and for my job, I worked with Rodney, and I actually filmed his whole class. And so part of the incentives again for making the film, where I had this really great footage of Rodney kind of like really confronting guys on some choices they were making, and like really challenging them to become better. And so I was like, okay, we'll make 20 minutes. It'll be Rodney, it'll be the mayor, and it'll be Father David kind of talking about 31st and Troost. And then Rodney was like, hey, there's this woman that you should interview. She's really dynamic and great, and she's got some good kind of thoughts on sort of the transformation of Troost. And so that was Carol Grimaldi. And then I met Anita Malpia with the Green Impact Zone through another job that I was working, and I was like, hey, maybe she'd be a great interview. And then I was getting involved in the payday loan and the Cap the Rate initiative that was happening here in Kansas City. And I was getting to be friends with Molly Fleming-Pierre, who was in charge of and heading that up. So I was like, well, wow, that's a really dynamic story. We should film that. So it just kind of, as the story grew, I discovered there was more and more people involved. And this was a bigger story than 20 to 25 minutes. So I was thinking, okay, it'll be 40 minutes, 45 minutes tops. That's a good kind of, you can put it, you can show it an hour-long television special or whatever at 42 minutes or whatever. And then as we started putting the thing together, it was just, there was so much to tell, and it was so good. And we had even narrowed it down. We were thinking, okay, we're not going to be able to tell a story of Troost Avenue because that's too big. There's too much going on. I was getting emails on a daily basis from people who are hearing about it saying, hey, this is what I'm doing at 47th and Troost. Hey, this is my thing that I'm doing at 43rd and Troost. hey, have you talked to this new neighborhood association? They're doing this big thing. Have you talked about Bancroft School? That's another big, huge one. And I was just like, oh my gosh. So I narrowed it down to just 31st and Troost, just the corner of 31st and Troost. And the final running time for our April 20th premiere was 53 minutes. Uh, and then we premiered it. We had the mayor there. We had a panel discussion afterwards. We had kind of an incredible response from it was about 400 people there. And we realized essentially that the story wasn't quite over. There was a couple of things. The Cap the Rate initiative hadn't wrapped up yet, and they were doing a couple rallies. There was Truce Fest coming up, which was the party on Truce that Father David organizes, and it was kind of the biggest festival yet. It was the 8th one that they've done. And also this panel, we ended up filming the panel discussion that happened after the premiere, and there were some very fascinating developments that occurred in that panel. So over the next, and we thought it's 53 minutes, which is not a feature film and it's not a short film. It's just kind of there. I was looking at the guidelines for Sundance, and Sundance has a 50-minute cutoff between feature and short. So I was like, okay, well, we can try to cut out a lot of this really great stuff, or we can just extend it about 20 more minutes, which we've got stuff coming up that ought to be in the film. So from May until September 24th, we worked on finishing the film and making it. It's now an hour and 18 minutes. And I'm a Canadian citizen, and I had a lot of issues. I don't know if you heard, but I ended up getting deported for this.
Okay, you have to tell us the story.
I was a student at UMKC, and I had a student visa, and I thought that my student visa had extended a year, and then I thought I could extend it another year and a half. Turns out the extension had not gone through, but no one had told me. All I knew is that I had to go back to Canada to apply for a different visa, and so that I could come back. I found all this out in June, or late May, early June, and I mean, obviously we're just about to really get going on extended film, 25 minutes. I have to go back to Canada for 3 months. Things worked out. We ended up getting a lot of filming done before I left. And then I had a friend of a friend who has a studio up in Canada, and he said, hey, I was like, I'll make you executive producer if you just give me access to all of your equipment for free. And he said, absolutely. He said, that's great. So it worked out in the end. I got back on September 13th, and we had 8 days before the due date for Sundance. And so we had like 8 days together, Chris and I, and we just worked around the clock and got the film done.
So to some degree, getting deported was almost a blessing.
Kind of was. Canada was actually significantly better than the equipment that we had here as far as editing software goes. So, and it also gave me space to just work on the film. Here, I've got a life and I've got things going on, and I'm very busy when I'm in Kansas City. But there, it was just like I'm from the East Coast. I'm on Prince Edward Island. There's like beaches and kind of beautiful weather, and it turned out okay, but it definitely was a mess there for about 2 weeks.
So what's next? You obviously submitted to Sundance. Have you submitted to any other festivals, or what's next for Superman?
We have submitted to 15 festivals currently. Tribeca Film Festival in New York, Hot Docs is one in Toronto, South by Southwest in Houston, and then there's a lot of cities, International Boston, International San Francisco, Miami, Atlanta.
Kevin, tell us, I know
Kansas
you said there's a number of other shows you're submitting to, a number of other festivals you're submitting to. Tell us a little bit about that process. How does that go about?
It's not an easy process, because you don't just hear about all these festivals. What I did, fortunately, since I went to film school, I had the access to professors who have been there before and who have done that. So I emailed a couple professors of mine and said, hey, what are some good festivals? All I know of is the huge ones. And they sent me lists. I simply went online and I Googled documentary film festivals, Um, and then there's the application process. That's a long, and it's also expensive. We've spent a lot of money submitting to festivals. Um, uh, so it's not cheap.
So is there a good chance we see Superman back up on the Kickstarter again, or are you going to dip into that well as far as funding goes?
What we're doing as far as funding goes right now is actually, since we kind of since we finished that 53-minute version, is kind of great because that is a previous edit now, and so we can kind of show that as often as we want to. So we're using that to our advantage, and we're going to be actually screening that at the Screenland Crossroads in December. It's going to do a weekend run. We're going to have a Friday night and then Saturday, Sunday matinee, and that'll hopefully bring in enough funds for us to travel to these festivals. We're also there's a mega church out in Leawood called, I think it's Core Church of the Resurrection. They do a tour of the city on this bus, and they wanted to get clips from us for their bus tour. So we were able to raise some funds off of that. So actually the film itself has been able to kind of propel itself forward. But if push comes to shove and we've got 12 festivals next year to go to and we don't have enough money, yeah, absolutely, Kickstarter is where we'll go for sure. And at that point, I'm sure we'll have a big enough base of people behind us that shouldn't be too much problem.
So what's after Superman for you?
Well, Christopher Cook and I can now kind of dream the way we've wanted to dream as far as what do we really want to do. So Chris, we've got a couple ideas in the making as far as we're gonna do another documentary for sure. Chris has access to a gentleman in Iowa who is kind of fighting the student loan business, the business of student loans, and how kind of the promise that higher education gives to kids. All they have to do is kind of sign their life away.
Right. Go into debt forever, and you're good to go.
Next 25 years. Anyway, and then what is this real promise? So that's something we're tossing around right now. And it looks like that might be a direction that at least Chris will be headed. I'm not sure if I myself will, but we're still talking about that. I've been very interested in the inflation of the diagnosis for mental illness that has happened among kids of late, and kind of I've got friends and people that I know that have kind of dealt with this label of mental illness and kind of the misunderstanding that goes along with all of that. Because people really don't. When you say you have diabetes, people get it. When you say I've got asthma, people get it. When you say I've got Asperger's, people don't get it.
No,
they don't understand. So that's an avenue that I'm looking at as well. So we're tossing around ideas. At this point, we're just enjoying sitting back and hoping that We Are Superman goes places. But coming in 2013, we're going to get back to the grind and start working. But we're going to do it properly. We Are Superman. We didn't do things in order at all. We just kind of jumped in and had a mess of a time. But if the next project, what we're going to do is make what's called a sizzle reel. And a sizzle reel is more than a trailer. It's kind of what your film is, start to finish, in 2.5 minutes. So it's like you give away the ending in a way. Start to finish in 2.5 minutes, and your sizzle reel is what you put up on Kickstarter with a little intro from yourself saying, hey, this is what I'm working on. And then your Kickstarter should be a full-time job for the 6 weeks that it's online. When we did We Are Superman, we barely touched it. Fortunately, we only went for $2,000, but if we could have gone for $20,000, and I'm sure we could have made it if we really worked at it. So that's what we're going to be actually, and we're not going to make a project unless we raise enough funds to do the project. So we're going to first work on an idea, molding an idea, creating a sizzle reel, putting it on Kickstarter, seeing if people enjoy the idea enough to back it, to fund it. And if they do, then we'll move forward and actually make the project, make the film.
Kevin, quick question. You mentioned UMKC. Are you done with school?
I've graduated with my undergrad. No, post-grad, I mean, it may end up occurring sometime down the road. I really don't feel like I'm good enough yet to make a fiction film, to write and direct a fiction film. So that may be something that I end up going back to school to grad school for, but not. I'm having so much fun at the moment with documentaries. So we'll be sticking at this for a little while, and then maybe in the next few years.
Great.
It sounds like you said your next product you'd use Kickstarter again. Is that something that you'll use in that flow consistently?
Absolutely, as long as we need to. Yeah, I see Kickstarter. I mean, I really do know people who they start with nothing and they want to raise 20 grand and they do it using Kickstarter. If you utilize it effectively and you're on it every day, you really can go for it. I just went to a documentary film conference last August, or September, I guess last month. And there was a gentleman there who had raised the second most amount of money ever on Kickstarter. He was over $300,000. And he talked about how he did that. And he really worked at it every single day. And he also found a niche market for his film. He's doing a documentary about middle-aged men who are into My Little Pony, and they're called bronies.
That is beyond niche. That's you've really drilled down when you're talking My Little Pony and 40-year-olds.
These bronies loved that they were being represented, and he found his niche, and and he had really, really great incentives, and he kept upping the incentives as people were donating more. So he had a person donate $100. He said, "Hey, you donate $200 and I'll give you this thing," and it was working. He really worked with that one niche market. So yeah, we'll be absolutely utilizing Kickstarter.
All right. Well, if you haven't had a chance to see We Are Superman, I highly recommend it. Kevin, where can they go to support the film? Where can they go to see the movie? And what's the next step if they want to help you in We Are Superman?
The next step is they can see it, the shorter version. It's 53 minutes long. It'll be shown at the Crossroads, Screenland Crossroads, December 7th at 7:30 p.m. And we're also going to have a reception with all the people who are in the film. They're going to be there. We're going to have a little reception afterwards if you want to get involved and talk to them. And then on Saturday, the December 8th, it'll be showing at 2:30, and on Sunday at 2:30 again. And we also have a little short film about Operation Breakthrough that will be showing right before our film. So it really will be about an hour and 10 minutes of movie watching, and then there's the reception afterwards on Friday night. And they can, if they want to stay involved, we've got facebook.com/wearesuperman, and that's where we're posting all of our updates about festivals and so on. And we start hearing about festivals December.
Great. Kevin, thanks so much for joining us.
Great, absolutely. Thanks a lot, Robert, for the opportunity here.
Oh man, thank you. We really had a great time.
Thanks, Kevin.
Take care.
Stay in touch.
Well, thank you for joining us, boys and girls. That was a wonderful conversation with Kevin. Tune in next week as we learn even more about how to fund your dreams with crowdfunding. Till then, remember, keep dreaming and don't get tied down with any strings.